She gave a Christmas gift to her contract husband, the powerful CEO Frozeℹ. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to the main character. It is Christmas Eve, and the house is silent in a way that feels expensive. The kind of silence money buys. Thick walls, soft lights, no echoes of laughter, no smell of food coming from the kitchen. Just polished marble floors and a towering Christmas tree that looks perfect but untouched, as if it was installed for appearance alone. She stands near the edge of the living room, holding a small gift box in both hands. It is not wrapped in designer paper. There is no luxury brand logo, just plain brown wrapping, tied with a red ribbon she bought at a drugstore on the corner. She hesitates. This was not part of the agreement. Across the room, her husband is finishing a phone call. His voice is calm, controlled, the same tone he uses in boardrooms and shareholder meetings, the tone that has built an empire worth billions of dollars. Yes, finalize it on Monday, no delays. The call ends. He turns around, loosening his tie slightly, and that is when he notices her standing there. Still, quiet, uncertain. For a moment, he assumes this is another staged moment, another photograph-worthy scene of the perfect CEO wife standing beside him for the holidays. Another performance they both signed up for. Then he sees the box. "What is that?" he asks. His voice is not harsh, just confused. She swallows. "A Christmas gift," she says softly. The words hang in the air, awkward and out of place, like someone speaking in the wrong language. He does not move closer. He does not smile. Instead, his brow tightens. "That was not included in the contract," he says. She nods. "I know." Silence returns, heavier than before. Their marriage began exactly 3 months ago. No romance, no vows whispered from the heart. Just signatures, lawyers, and a private ceremony that lasted less than 10 minutes. For him, the reason was simple. He needed a wife, a legal one, someone presentable enough to stand beside him during a crucial corporate merger and the relentless scrutiny of the board of directors. For her, the reason was survival. The money would pay off her father's medical bills. It would save her family home. It would buy time. The rules were clear from the beginning. No emotional involvement, no personal questions, no gifts, especially no gifts. And yet here she is, breaking the rule first. "I do not expect anything in return," she says quickly, her fingers tightening around the ribbon. "I just thought, it is Christmas." He exhales slowly, as if weighing a risk. "Fine," he says. "Give it to me." She steps forward and places the box in his hands. It is light, too light to be expensive. He lifts the lid. And then something changes. His shoulders stiffen. His breath catches, just for half a second. Inside the box is a small, worn object. Something old. Something that does not belong in a billionaire's mansion. His hands begin to shake, not visibly at first, just enough that she notices the subtle tremor in his fingers. His voice drops. "How did you find this?" She looks up at him, startled. "You mentioned it once," she says. "Barely. I did not even think you remembered." He does not answer. His gaze is fixed on the object, as if it has pulled him backward through time to a place he has not visited in decades. For the first time since she met him, the powerful CEO looks human. And for the first time since signing that contract, she realizes something dangerous. This marriage may have started on paper, but something real has just begun. The gift stays between them, resting in his hands far longer than it should. Then he closes the box, carefully, precisely, as if putting distance between himself and whatever memory just surfaced. "You should not do things like this again," he says. His voice is calm again, controlled. The powerful CEO tone has returned, sliding back into place like armor. Her hands were folded in her lap, nails pressed into her skin as she listened to the numbers being read aloud. Hospital bills, overdue payments, a house one missed payment away from foreclosure. She had been out of options. Then the door opened, and he walked in. Tall, impeccably dressed, expression unreadable. He did not look at her at first. He reviewed documents as if she were not sitting across the table from him, as if her life was just another file to be approved or rejected. The lawyer cleared his throat. She agrees to the terms. That was when he finally met her eyes. "You understand this is a business arrangement," he said. "Nothing more." She had nodded. "Yes." "No feelings," he continued. "No expectations. You will appear as my wife in public settings only." "And in private?" she asked quietly. "There will be boundaries," he said. "Strict ones." She should have walked away. Instead, she asked the only question that mattered. "My father's treatment," she said. "You will cover it?" "Yes." The answer had been immediate. So had her decision. The wedding took place 1 week later. No guests, no music, no vows spoken from the heart, just signatures and cameras. She moved into his house the next day, carrying 2 suitcases into a space that felt more like a luxury hotel than a home. Everything was immaculate. Nothing felt lived in. The rules were written and repeated. They would share appearances. They would not share lives. They would sleep in separate rooms, especially separate hearts. At first it was easy. He left early, came home late. Meetings filled his calendar. She filled her role quietly, learning when to speak and when to stay invisible. But then came the public events, dinners with investors, charity galas, board meetings where she was expected to smile but never interrupt. She watched him in those rooms, the way people leaned toward him when he spoke, the way silence followed his words, the way power clung to him like a second skin. At home, he was different, not cruel, just distant. Meals eaten separately, conversations limited to schedules and appearances. Until the night she found him sitting alone in the dark, staring out at the city skyline. "You do not have to sit with me," he said, without turning around. "I know," she replied, "but I want to." That had been the first crack, small, almost invisible. And now, on Christmas Eve, standing across from him after breaking the rules, she feels it widen. "This changes nothing," he says, as if reminding himself more than her. "Our agreement remains the same." She nods again, but this time she is not so sure. Because for the first time since signing that contract, she has seen what lives beneath the power. And contracts do not protect you from that. The next morning arrives without celebration. No music, no gifts under the tree, just sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows, cold and pale, touching surfaces that feel more like displays than belongings. She is already awake when she hears footsteps in the hallway. He is dressed in a tailored suit, cufflinks in place, phone in hand. Always prepared, always moving forward. "There is a meeting at 10, he says, pouring coffee without looking at her. "You will attend." She nods. "Of course." He pauses, then adds, "After that we need to revisit the agreement." The word agreement lands heavier than she expects. They sit across from each other at the long dining table, the same one used for formal dinners with people who never stay long. A folder rests between them, thick, legal, final. "This is an amendment," he says. "It clarifies expectations." She opens it slowly. The language is precise, cold. Every sentence carefully designed to remove uncertainty. Public appearances only. No unscheduled intimacy. No personal involvement beyond what is required. Her eyes stop at one line. No exchange of personal gifts or sentimental items. She looks up. "This was already implied," she says. "Yes," he replies, "but now it is explicit." The memory of his hands shaking flashes through her mind. She wonders if he remembers it too, or if he has already locked it away. "Do you have questions?" he asks. She considers lying. Instead, she asks the truth. "Why are you doing this?" He does not answer right away. "Because clarity prevents mistakes," he says finally, "and mistakes are costly." She signs, so does he. The pen clicks shut, sharp and final. From that moment on, the rules become visible in everything they do. At the meeting, she sits beside him, posture perfect, smile practiced. She speaks only when spoken to. When a board member makes a cutting remark about her background, she stays silent. He does not. "She represents this company as my wife," he says calmly, "and that is all that matters." The room goes quiet. On the drive home, neither of them mentions it. Days pass. They settle into a rhythm shaped by boundaries. Mornings begin separately. Evenings end the same way. Polite conversations replace anything personal. yet small moments slip through. She leaves a blanket draped over the back of his chair when she notices him working late. He says nothing, but the blanket remains there the next night. She memorizes his coffee order without meaning to. He notices when it is wrong. They never acknowledge these things. One evening, she returns home early and hears voices from the study. He is on a call, not a business one. His tone is different, lower, tired. "No," he says, "that chapter is closed." A pause. "I do not need reminders." She steps away before he sees her. Later, at dinner, she almost asks what he meant. Almost. The contract sits like an invisible third presence between them, protective, suffocating. And yet, when they attend another public event and a reporter asks how they met, he answers smoothly, without hesitation. "We were introduced through mutual interests," he says. "She brings balance to my life." She looks at him, surprised. He does not look back. That night, she lies awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing something she has been avoiding. The agreement was meant to keep things simple, but clarity, she is learning, does not stop feelings from forming. It only delays the moment they demand to be acknowledged. And when that moment comes, no contract in the world will be strong enough to hold it back. The transformation does not happen all at once. It happens quietly, gradually, in moments that feel insignificant until they are not. Her days begin to fill with instructions. A stylist arrives first, polite but efficient, laying out dresses she has never touched before, fabrics that feel too smooth, shoes that cost more than her monthly rent once did. "This one for charity dinners," the woman says. "This one for board events. And this one is for private functions with major donors." She listens carefully, asks questions, learns, not because she enjoys it, but because she understands the assignment. To the outside world, she must look effortless. He watches these changes from a distance, not intrusively, not critically, just observant. At their first major gala together, cameras flash the moment they step onto the red carpet. Her hand slips into the crook of his arm exactly as she was taught. She feels him stiffen for half a second. Then he adjusts, matching her pace. Inside the ballroom, everything gleams. Crystal chandeliers, soft music, conversations layered with ambition. She follows his lead, smiling when introduced, nodding when spoken to. She remembers names. She remembers faces. One woman leans in too close. "She is not what I expected," the woman says, eyes sharp. "You usually prefer a different type," and his response is immediate. "She is exactly what I need," he says. The woman retreats. She does not look at him, but she feels the shift. At home, the dynamic remains unchanged. Separate bedrooms, separate routines, careful distance. But the house begins to feel less empty. She starts leaving small traces of herself behind. A book on the coffee table, a bowl of fruit on the counter, soft music playing in the evenings instead of silence. He never comments on it, but he stops working in the dark. One night, she missteps. They are hosting a small dinner, nothing extravagant, just a few executives and their spouses. One of the men makes a joke at her expense, about where she came from, about how fortunate she is. The room laughs politely. She feels the old instinct rise, the urge to shrink. Instead, she straightens. "Fortune had nothing to do with it," she says evenly. "Hard work did." The table falls silent. She waits for him to intervene, to correct her, to smooth things over. He does not. Later that night, after the guests leave, he speaks. "You did not need to say that," he says. "I know," she replies, "but I wanted to." He studies her for a long moment. "You handled it well," he admits. It is the first compliment he has given her without obligation. Another evening, she catches him standing in front of the Christmas tree long after the season has passed. The lights are still there, unplugged, forgotten. "You never took it down," she says. "There was no reason to," he replies. She almost asks what he means. Instead, she simply plugs it in. The lights glow softly. He does not stop her. In public, they become convincing. In private, they remain careful. But something subtle is changing. He begins to ask if she has eaten. She begins to notice when he skips meals. They exchange glances across crowded rooms, shared understanding without words. The contract remains intact. The boundaries are still there, yet the performance is no longer entirely an act. And that is what unsettles her the most, because the more natural it feels, the harder it becomes to remember where the role ends and where the truth begins. The invitation arrives 3 days later, a black envelope, thick paper, gold lettering, the annual Winter Benefit Gala. It is the kind of event that decides reputations quietly, in conversations held just far enough from the crowd. Investors attend, board members attend, people who have waited years for a moment of weakness attend. "This one matters," he says, handing her the card, "more than the others." She understands immediately. This is not just about appearances, this is about control. The night of the gala, the city glows under winter lights. The venue rises like a glass monument, warm and brilliant against the cold air. Inside, everything is polished to perfection. As they step in together, the room reacts. Heads turn, whispers follow. Eyes measure her from head to toe. Her hand rests lightly on his arm, steady, composed. She feels him tense, just slightly. They move through the crowd with practiced ease, smiles, handshakes, familiar lines exchanged like currency. Then she sees him, one of the senior board members, older, smiling too much. He approaches with a glass in hand. "So this is the wife," he says, his gaze lingering. "You appeared rather suddenly." She keeps her smile. "Life moves quickly," she replies. He chuckles. "Or strategically." The word lands sharp. "I have known him for a long time," the man continues, turning to her husband. "He does not usually do anything without careful planning." Her husband says nothing. The silence stretches. People nearby pretend not to listen, while listening to everything. She feels the choice forming in her chest. She could stay quiet. She could play the role exactly as written. Instead, she speaks. "Planning does not exclude sincerity," she says evenly. "Sometimes it makes room for it." The board member raises an eyebrow. "Is that so?" She meets his gaze without flinching. "Yes," she says, "it is." The man studies her for a moment, then smiles again. Thinner this time. "Interesting," he says before walking away. The tension does not disappear. It spreads. Later, during dinner, a donor leans in too close. "You are fortunate," the woman murmurs. "Not everyone gets a chance like this." She nods politely. "I am grateful, not naive." Across the table, she feels his eyes on her. After the speeches, the board member returns, this time with others in tow. "Care to share how you met?" he asks, loudly enough for several people to hear. It is a test. She waits for him to answer. He does not. The silence presses in. So she steps forward. "We met at a time when neither of us was looking for anything," she says, "and we made a choice." "A business choice?" someone asks. She does not hesitate. "A mutual one." The room stills. Her husband finally speaks. "That will be all," he says calmly. The conversation dissolves. In the car afterward, neither of them speaks at first. The city blurs past the windows. "You did not have to do that," he says eventually. "I know," she replies. "That was risky." She turns to him. "You did not stop me." He exhales slowly. "No," he admits. "I did not." The admission hangs between them, because for the first time, she did not protect herself. She protected him, and for the first time, he allowed it. Neither of them says it out loud, but they both feel it. Something has shifted. The agreement still exists, the rules are still written. Yet tonight, in front of everyone who mattered, she crossed a line, and he let her stay there, which means the next test will not come from the world. It will come from them. The house feels different after the gala. Not louder, not warmer, just aware. They move through the next day more carefully than before, as if both of them know something fragile now exists between them, something neither has named. He leaves early, like always. She spends the morning alone, the silence pressing in. But this time, it does not feel empty. It feels watchful. That evening, she returns from a charity committee meeting later than planned. The lights in the living room are dim. The city glows beyond the windows, distant and indifferent. She hears him before she sees him. A quiet sound, sharp, controlled, pain. She finds him sitting on the edge of the sofa, jacket discarded, one hand pressed against his side. His jaw is clenched, his breathing shallow. "Are you all right?" she asks, stepping closer. "I am fine," he says automatically. She has heard that tone before, in hospitals, in people who do not want to be helped. "You are not," she replies. He exhales, long and slow, as if conceding a small defeat. "Old injury," he says. "It flares up sometimes." She hesitates, then sits down across from him. "Do you need anything?" she asks. "No," he says. Then, after a pause, "Just time." She nods. She does not touch him. She does not press. Instead, she stays. Minutes pass. Then more. Eventually, his breathing evens out. The tension in his shoulders softens. "You did not have to stay," he says quietly. "I know," she answers. He looks at her then. Really looks. "You crossed a line last night," he says. "So did you," she replies gently. He does not argue. Instead, he looks away, toward the window. "My family used to host galas like that," he says suddenly. "Every year." She listens. "They called it tradition," he continues. "I called it obligation." She does not interrupt. "My parents believed appearances mattered more than presence," he says. "We were always together, but never close." The city lights blur slightly in his gaze. "Christmas was the worst," he adds. "Everyone pretending, everyone performing." She thinks of the gift, of his shaking hands. "That is why you hate gifts," she says softly. He closes his eyes for a moment. "I hate expectations," he corrects. Something shifts again, quieter this time, deeper. Later that night, she finds a glass of water and pain medication placed neatly beside his bed. He says nothing, neither does she. Over the next few days, routines change in small ways. He stops skipping dinner. She stops eating alone. They do not sit close, but they sit at the same table. One evening he asks, "How was your meeting?" She pauses, surprised. "It was fine," she says. "Long." He nods. They usually are. It is not much, but it is something. Then comes the moment she does not expect. They are reviewing schedules when his phone rings. He answers, listens, and then his expression hardens. "No," he says. "That will not happen." He ends the call abruptly. "What is it?" she asks. "Nothing," he says too quickly. She recognizes the deflection. "You do not have to tell me," she says, "but you do not have to be alone either." The words hang between them. Dangerous. Honest. He looks at her, torn. The contract is still there. The rules are still written. But something has changed. He nods once. "Thank you," he says. It is the first time he has said it like that. Not as a formality, not as obligation, but as acknowledgement. And in that moment, she realizes the truth. This marriage may still be built on paper, but what is growing between them no longer fits inside it. Christmas morning arrives quietly. No announcements, no schedule, no obligations. Just soft light filtering through the tall windows and the faint hum of the city far below. She wakes early, not because she has to, because she cannot sleep. The house feels suspended in time, as if it is holding its breath. She finds him in the living room. He is standing near the window, fully dressed, coat still on, as if he has been there for a long time. The city reflects faintly in the glass, casting shadows across his face. "You are up early," she says. "I did not sleep," he replies. Neither did she. The silence between them is not awkward. It is careful, charged. She hesitates, then walks to the table where the small box still sits, untouched since the night before. "I did not mean to break the rules," she says quietly. "I can take it back." He turns toward her. "No," he says immediately. The word comes out sharper than intended. He steps closer, eyes fixed on the box. "It is already broken," he adds more calmly. She lifts it, unsure, and holds it out again. "This was never about Christmas," she says. I saw it, and I remembered what you said." He closes his eyes briefly, then takes the box. This time, he opens it slowly. Inside, resting on a folded piece of tissue paper, is the object again. Small, worn, ordinary to anyone else. To him, it is not. His fingers hover over it before making contact. When they do, his hand trembles. Not from pain, from recognition. "How did you find this?" he asks again, his voice lower now, stripped of authority. She watches him carefully. "You mentioned it once," she says, "not as a story, more like a sentence you regretted saying." He swallows. "That was years ago," he says. "I know," she replies, "but you never forgot it. I could hear it." He exhales slowly, as if letting go of something he has been holding inside for decades. "My mother gave this to me," he says, "before she died." The words land softly, but they change the air in the room. "She used to say it was proof that something could belong to you without being earned," he continues. "I did not understand that then." She says nothing. "She gave it to me on Christmas," he adds, "the last one we spent together." His grip tightens. "After that, Christmas became a performance," he says, "a reminder of everything that did not last." She steps closer, slowly. "I am sorry," she says. He shakes his head. "No, do not be." He looks at her then, fully, without distance. "You should not have known this," he says. "You were never meant to." She meets his gaze. "I did not look for it because I was your wife," she says. "I looked for it because I saw the way you looked when you talked about that year." Something in his expression fractures. For a moment, he looks like a man who does not know what to do with kindness. "This changes things," he says quietly. She nods. "I know." The contract flashes through both their minds. The clause written in ink. No gifts, no sentiment, no attachments. He closes the box. "This should not exist," he says, and yet it does. She feels her heart tighten. "If you want me to leave," she says carefully, "I will." He looks at her, startled. "No," he says immediately. Then he stops himself. The room holds still. "I'm not ready to pretend this meant nothing," he says finally. She does not smile. She does not reach for him. She simply says, "Neither am I." Outside, the city continues as usual. Inside, something irreversible has happened. The gift was never meant to survive the contract, but it has. And now, so has the truth neither of them can put back where it belongs. The fallout does not come immediately. It never does. For 2 days after Christmas morning, the house exists in a fragile truce. Nothing is said about the gift. Nothing is undone. But nothing moves forward either. They orbit each other carefully, too aware, too restrained. The contract remains untouched on his desk, its presence louder now than ever. Then the call comes. He answers it in his study, door closed. His voice is low, controlled, but she hears the shift even from down the hall. "No," he says. "That document is confidential." A pause. "You have no authority to release it." Another pause, longer this time. His jaw tightens. "Do not threaten me." When he opens the door, his expression is composed, too composed. "What is it?" she asks. "Nothing," he says. The word is a lie. By evening, the truth arrives on its own. An email circulates among board members and major investors. Subject line neutral, content devastating. A leaked copy of the marriage contract, highlighted clauses, annotations, speculation disguised as concern. She reads it once, then again. Her name appears next to terms like arrangement and obligation. Not wife, not partner, asset. Her hands shake as she sets the tablet down. "So this is what I am," she says quietly. He looks at her sharply. "You know that is not true." "Then why does it read like this?" she asks. He exhales, running a hand through his hair. "They are trying to destabilize me," he says. "This is about control." "And what about me?" she asks. The question lands harder than any accusation. Silence stretches between them. "This was supposed to protect us," he says finally. "Both of us." "Protect you," she corrects. "I just happen to benefit." He flinches. "That is not fair," he says. "Is it not?" she replies. "Because right now, it feels like the moment I stopped being useful, the truth became negotiable." "That is not what I meant," he says, frustration breaking through. "Then what did you mean?" she asks. "Because the world now knows I was hired to stand beside you." The word hired cuts deep. He steps closer. "I never saw you that way." "But you let them," she says. The room feels smaller, tighter. "This changes things," he says, echoing his words from Christmas morning. "Yes," she agrees. "It does." He turns away, pacing. "If I fight this publicly, it escalates," he says. "They will dig deeper, twist more." "So your solution is what?" she asks. "Silence?" His answer is not immediate. "For now," he says, "yes." She stares at him, disbelief settling into something colder. "You want me to disappear," she says. "No," he says quickly. "I want you to be safe." She laughs once, soft, bitter. "Safe from what?" she asks. "Being seen?" The truth sits between them, ugly and unavoidable. As long as the contract exists, it will always speak louder than her. "I cannot do this anymore," she says. He freezes. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that if I stay," she continues, voice steady, "I stay as a clause, not a choice." "That is not what you are to me," he says. "Then prove it," she says. The challenge hangs in the air. He does not answer. That is answer enough. She turns away, walking toward the stairs. "I will pack," she says. "I will keep my side of the agreement, quietly, cleanly." He watches her go, conflict written across his face. This is the moment the contract was designed for. Pressure, exposure, risk. And it does what it was always meant to do. It forces a choice, not between power and reputation, but between control and truth. And for the first time since he signed his name, he is no longer sure which one he can live without. She finishes packing before dawn, not because there is much to take, because there is nothing left she is willing to leave behind. One suitcase, quiet movements, no tears. She pauses at the doorway, taking one last look at the house that was never meant to feel like home. When she reaches the bottom of the stairs, she stops. He is standing there, no suit, no phone, no armor, just him. "I was wrong," he says. The words are simple, bare, unpracticed. She tightens her grip on the suitcase handle. "I know." "No," he says, stepping closer. "I was wrong to think silence would protect you. I was wrong to think control was the same as safety." She does not respond. "I spent my life believing that if I managed risk well enough, nothing could hurt me," he continues. "But all I did was avoid choosing." She looks at him then. "And now?" she asks. He holds up a folder, the contract, the same one that built everything between them, the same one that nearly destroyed it. "I called an emergency board meeting," he says. "They are waiting." Her breath catches. "You do not have to do that." "I do," he says. "For the first time, I do." The room feels suspended as he opens the folder and places it on the table between them. "I am done hiding behind this," he says. "I will not let anyone define you as a clause, or me as a coward." She watches as he takes a pen. There is no hesitation. He signs a single line, termination. Then he slides the folder toward her. "I am not asking you to stay," he says quietly. "I am asking you to choose." Her hands shake as she sets the suitcase down. "You know what this costs you," she says. "Yes," he replies, "and I know what it costs me if I do not." The boardroom is silent when they arrive. Every face turns toward them. Curious, calculating. He stands at the head of the table. "Yes, the marriage began as a contract," he says calmly. "And yes, I authorized it." Murmurs ripple through the room. "But it ends now," he continues, "because what exists between us is no longer an arrangement, and I will not let anyone profit from pretending otherwise." A board member leans forward. "This is reckless." He meets the man's gaze. "No, this is honest." He turns to her then, not as a CEO, not as a strategist, as a man. "I do not want a wife on paper," he says. "I want you, without terms, without protection, without guarantees." The room holds its breath. She steps forward. "This marriage did not give me power," she says, "but it showed me who I am when I am seen." She looks at him. "And I choose that." The fallout is loud. Headlines follow. Stock prices dip, then stabilize. Truth has a cost, but it also has weight. Months later, the house feels different, lived in, warm. The Christmas tree is back, lights glowing softly. This time, there is a small box beneath it. He hands it to her, hands steady. She opens it. A ring. Simple. Intentional. No contract, he says. No deadline. She smiles. Just a promise? He nods. Just a promise. Outside, the city moves on. Inside, something rare has survived. What began as a transaction ended as a choice, and this time, nothing needed to be signed. Sometimes, the most dangerous contracts are not the ones we sign on paper, but the ones we hide behind to avoid telling the truth. This story is not really about power, or money, or even marriage. It is about the moment someone stops protecting themselves and chooses to be real instead. What would you have done in her place? And what would you have chosen if you were him? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for the next one.